All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another special Friday episode of Design Recharge. I am joined with Bryan Butler and Drew Roper. And they're in both separate cities. And I'm real excited to have them here. We're going to be talking about type fight. So I'm going to just get started. I'm going to ask you both. We'll start with Bryan. Can you tell us a little bit about your background and what got you interested in design?
Oh, well, hey, thanks for having us. Yeah, this is going to be fun, I hope. Slightly nervous. That's all right. So I guess for me, like my dad was a draftsman, so we always had computers like since I was a kid. So like being on a computer was always just kind of natural to me. And but I was also a pretty artistic kid, so like when I'd play on his computer, I'd open up like print shop and make like posters for my room, or we got Mario Paint when I was like 10 or something, so I'd use the prototype Wacom tablet I had as Mario Paint, and play with that. And then like in grade school, I doodled constantly, and like all my notebooks were just kind of covered with like the names of bands that I liked, and this is before I knew what lettering or design or typefaces, like any of those words were in my head, but I'd always like have this goal of trying to like draw each one in like a different style or different, so I'd do this one in like what I didn't know was called a sans serif, and then this one I'd do in like a metal spiky script, and then this one so I just played with like lettering and stuff all the time. But I was also kind of pretty good at, like, when I went to high school, I got better at like writing, and that was kind of what I thought was my strength. So when I went to college, I started out as an English major, and I was all right with that, but then I kind of really decided that I didn't want to be a teacher, and I kind of didn't love reading, which is kind of half the battle there. So I kind of tree branched and added design onto that once I realized that, oh yeah, that's the thing that I should be doing because that's in my blood. So I tree branched, and I eventually got both degrees, and I'm glad I did because I think reading and writing really help you kind of become a better designer. Because when you read, you're exposing yourself to new ideas and new things, and then when you're writing, you're like really thinking through like how to solve problems and ideas and things like that. So anyway, I got the English degree, but I probably won't be like teaching Chaucer to eighth graders at any point in the future. I'll stick with doodling for a living.
Did you like Chaucer?
No, no. I mean, there are definitely artists or writers and authors that I like, but I didn't dive deep into reading and like all that kind of stuff like my peers were doing, and I was like, I seem to be a little different. Like I'm good at just expressing my own thoughts and writing a 30-page paper about Kurt Vonnegut, but I don't want to do that all the time. Like it's kind of killing me. So
That's what we do on the weekends for fun.
yeah, that's
I grade Brian's papers.
my side thing.
So, Drew, tell us about your background and
Yeah.
when you started, did you use Paint,
I
Mario
use
Paint?
I use Microsoft Paint like it was nobody's business. Yeah, I was never really an art kid, like art kid. I can't draw very well, so I was never really into like traditional art classes. And then one year, my family got a computer that had Microsoft Paint on it, and then I was in a couple bands, and I'd always do. We'd change the name of our band like once a month, so I could do a different logo for it. And so I was in that. I was doing like my dad coached football, so I was always doing like football logos, and I'm sure these like high school kids were thrilled that some 13-year-old kid was like doing their helmet decal and everything. And today I can't even imagine like being a production designer at a athletic company that does decals and like seeing a Microsoft Paint file come in, like legitimately a Microsoft Paint file with like the design on it. So anyway, I went to school. Brian and I both went to University of Missouri, and we didn't really know each other until we got into design. And before we did that, I was a computer science major, and I was terrible at that. And I had no idea what I wanted to do. I was still intrigued by design, I guess, and I didn't know what design was, and I was always, same thing, like doodling in my notebooks. I was always drawing letters for some reason because I couldn't draw people very well. And then turns out Ryan Pauly, who is another part of Type Fight, one day was like, hey, I enrolled in graphic design classes. I think that's something you would like to do. And I was like, okay, cool, sign up. I was not doing very well as a psychology major. I was playing way too much Guitar Hero, and I switched over. So, from then on, it was just a complete obsession. I got into doing gig posters, and I just fell in love with it. So it's become a labor of love. It kept me from failing out of school, which was nice. And I was lucky enough to meet Brian, and we had a good program down at Mizzou to kind of like get started, and it encouraged us to learn a lot on our own. So, yeah, that's really where it started.
So that's pretty good. It seems like neither of you had. Did you know what design was as a kid? Either of you, Brian?
I mean, no. I mean, I knew that somebody was out there like making logos, because I would like make my own logos for myself and things like that. But I didn't. I don't know. For some reason, I thought it was. I just didn't have a name for it, and just couldn't just see it as something I could go for. But yeah.
What about you, Drew?
I don't know. I can't even remember. I'm gonna say no. I just kind of knew what art was, I think, and I recognized that there was definitely. I always played sports as a kid, so sports logos were kind of my first influence of actual. I don't know. I guess I'll call it branding, but yeah, I had no idea, and hence the Microsoft Paint stuff. I had no idea who Paul Rand was, or who any of these gigantic designers, and who did the UPS logo. I had no idea. So it wasn't really until I don't know. I don't want to say school, but I'll say at Mizzou, I really kind of got educated, which is good.
Yeah, I mean, when I first started the program, I was still calling it graphics design, because that's what I thought. I just was like, I'd switch in conversations, I don't know which it is. Is it graphic or graphics? And it took me to my second year in college before I was like, oh, right, okay, there's no S. Got it.
There's just an X. It's GRAFIX.
Graphics design, yeah.
That's what it is.
So Drew, how did it begin? How did Type Fight begin? And whose idea was it? And if you played sports, were you always competitive? Did you think that this would? Did you guys on the side hey, let's draw R today and see whose is better? How did it start?
To be perfectly honest, in a nutshell, yes, that's exactly how it started. I think I'm not even kidding either. So I was at my first real big boy job. It was a production company here in Chicago, and I was seeing all these people doing lettering, and I was getting into that world of lettering, and it was just kind of getting really popular. So I was seeing all this stuff, and I, of course, was doing magazine ads, so I wasn't doing anything glamorous. Nobody that I really knew personally from a design standpoint was really getting into lettering at all, and I wanted to change that, so I just wanted to start doing it. And I'm totally terrified to do anything by myself. I mean, jumping into a project by myself scares the crap out of me, so I talked to Ryan Pauly initially a lot on GChat. And one day I was like, hey, we should maybe do some letters. Maybe we'll do an alphabet. We'll put it up online, and we'll see which letters people like best. That's essentially how it started. I mean, we wanted anyone to vote on them, because we were asking people, like my accounting friends from school, to vote on these letters. And there wasn't really that design focus yet, as far as the design pool of talent and stuff. So literally, who would vote on these things? My mom, my grandma, my accounting buddy, and it started as that. We thought we'd get 10 votes a fight, and it turned out the first one, I think, was 117 to 40. I won, so that's good. And it was against Pauly. So Pauly and I just did these letters every once in a while and put them up on Type Fight to have people vote on them. And along the way, we were influenced a ton by, obviously, Daily Drop Caps. Layer Tennis was another one. Friends of Type was huge, because it was kind of the first typography-centric blog that I followed. And then the old school site Hot or Not, where you just voted. on who was hotter, I guess. I don't specifically remember what it was.
For the record, Drew is always hotter. That's how it works.
Sometimes. I don't have a beard though, so that not in those circles. But yeah, essentially it was kind of combining all those things together and just trying to have fun. And it's kind of crazy, you know. Everybody in the design field, they want feedback on stuff. They want to be validated. Everybody has an opinion on design. So we wanted people to be able to vote. We wanted people to have an opinion, and we wanted to keep it super loose and open. And you know, that's how it started. And then from then, it just kind of catapulted to Brian got in early. We had him do some guest fights, and then it got to a point where I couldn't necessarily keep up with the talent that we were featuring as far as guest fights on the site. And to be honest, I was having more fun finding people to fight and getting people involved and having people be hyped about it and really getting stoked to fight. So in a nutshell, that's kind of how it grew, and we try and stay true to those principles today as far as, you know, staying loose, having fun, trying to let anybody vote. And it's really not, you don't win like $1,000 if your letter wins. You know, it's all for free, it's all for fun. So that's kind of the spirit that it started with.
Well, cool. All right, so you're both working real jobs separate from this. This is not what makes your income, and you're both in separate places. So, Brian, how often are you talking, and how often do you see each other?
Well, I mean, as far as talking, like we probably talk like almost every day on like GChat, or like, you know, maybe once a week or once every other week we'll do like a, you know, video chat to talk about bigger like type fight stuff. As far as like seeing each other in person, we probably don't. I saw him in April, like at Creative South, and that's the last time I've seen him. I might see him one more time this year. It's probably like twice a year, something like that. So yeah, not a whole lot.
So what about how hard is it to interact? I mean, or to not interact? I guess you're interacting a good bit, just virtually or on the phone or something. But how hard is that to run a project that's so big with somebody who's not in the same city? Has that been a problem, Brian?
I mean, not a huge problem, because I mean it's a website, so we're not like. So I mean, the only thing that I wish I could help more with would be like the shipping of like prints and T-shirts and things like that, because that's all being done by Drew right now in his little nice office inventory warehouse thing he's got. It's probably a kitchen table. I've never seen the Nexus.
It's two IKEA Alex flat files, and they're totally packed, and there's too much crap in them, and we got to figure out what to do. But for right now, I enjoy shipping. It's not like it's that much. I mean, I go to the post office twice a week, but
they know you by name.
They know me, and they're not happy ever. They're never happy when I show up, because it's like a record box that we ship them in, and they're like, "Is this media mail? Because it's got a cheaper rate." Then I say no, and then they think I'm shipping something illegal, and they're just not stoked to do their job. So it makes it hard, but that's all fun.
So, Brian, what about what are some of the challenges? Because I think a lot of people are kind of like Drew, where they don't necessarily want to start a project maybe on their own, and it is helpful if you have somebody else to do it with, and it's the, I don't know, encouragement or the accountability also that somebody's going to keep you doing this thing, I think helps. So what are some of the benefits and what are some of the challenges of working with somebody who you know really well but maybe doesn't live in the same city? And I'm going to ask that to Brian again, because it's all part of one question.
I mean, as far as challenges, I mean, really, I think we've got it handled pretty well. Like, trying to think. I don't know, what are some challenges, Drew? I can't think of any huge challenges. Other than, I mean, it's a big site, and sometimes, like, I'll be, you know, out, like, at a client meeting or something, and it's time to, like, post a letter. And so I have to say, hey, Drew, can you do this? Or he'll do the same to me, or like tweeting and things like that. We just have to coordinate like who does what all the time. And we kind of have like a general like designation. Like I'm generally the guy who tweets, and Drew's generally the guy who like uploads the things to the site. So there's kind of just a delegation of powers, I guess. But when you have, I mean, when you work with somebody you know who's going to be hardworking and who does good work and who, you know, you like all those things fit Drew, then it's kind of it's fun. It's hard when you see a challenge. Like it's not some you're not like, damn it, this project's done. Like it's a challenge that we have to like overcome. Like and yeah, try to figure it out.
Drew, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. There's definitely been some times where we've been really antsy about something, and we've really wanted to, we have an idea. It's formulated in our heads already, and Brian and I are usually on the same page. So we kind of have ideas similarly at the same time, whatever. And we kind of have to take a step back and say, like, all right, how are we really going to implement this? Is it really worth doing? So some of the communication things there, as far as like getting as hyped as the other person at the exact same time to see something through. Otherwise, sometimes stuff doesn't go through. We wanted to do like a March Madness tournament, which hopefully we'll still be able to do in the future, but that was kind of like Brian and I video chat for an hour, get everything listed out and see what's going down. And then we kind of got to the end of that and we're like, all right, cool. Well, how the hell is this how are we going to do this? So I think the only problem with that is we have a lot of ideas that we want to do, but sometimes it's just, it's not possible at that time.
Right. So, all right. So, Drew, what are some of the growing pains? Because you guys, when we were talking before, you kind of had like TYPEFIGHT 1.0, and then you have like 2.0. So,
yeah.
You want to talk about some of those growing pains? Because when somebody takes on a big project, and if it does last, like y'all's has, and it's really grown, what would you do different if you were starting that project, or any advice you would give?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, like, I don't know how to code. So if you want to do a website, that was hard. Like, we had to, there's more of this we can talk about later, but we don't know how to code. So we kind of had to figure out, all right, if we want to do this website where people can vote, how do we put two letters together? What do we do then? We have to have a voting thing. We have to make sure that anybody can vote. We got to make sure no one's cheating. So the first site was just a hacked together Tumblr. I mean, it was literally just a free theme, and what we did was we had to form our idea around what we were capable of doing in Tumblr. So that kind of sucked. I mean, we made it work, but that was one of the problems, just because I didn't know how to build a website. I didn't know the first thing about voting or anything like that. And because of that, a lot of the fights took a long time to put together. Like, we were doing one a week. We had to take two images, put them together. We had to take a header image that had the round number, put that together, upload that to the site. Then we had to go to PollDaddy, get a poll going, put that in the basically a blog post. I had to ask Brian to drop everything and write a witty intro paragraph, and every time it was better than the last one. I don't know how he did that. But yeah, I think that was tough. So that was definitely a growing pain of, okay, how do we grow this thing while staying really constrained to this one platform, which was Tumblr. So that was kind of like the web part of it. I think we were both like, Brian, and I were both so dedicated to it that we didn't really have any like commitment issues. Like, we made time. I stayed up until 2, 3, 4 a.m. just to make sure that it worked. But then some of the stuff we started seeing as we were going was how the site really works. So how, like, what types of letters are successful, what types of colors are successful, and then on the flip side, like, what things are bad. And unfortunately, illustrated letters are just not good for the site. We kind of have a metaphor that any illustrated letter is kind of like bringing a gun to a knife fight, because people are like, oh man, cool, that letter looks like a bird, so obviously, duh, I'm going to vote for that letter, and then the other letter just doesn't get the time of day. So that was tough. We kind of had to put the kibosh on that, and every time I email a designer that's fighting, I have to like annoyingly bold no illustrations. So hopefully that gets out there. I love illustrations. Yeah. For the site, it's just not very good. It just doesn't work well. And then, there's a huge bottleneck of amazing designers out there that we can't fit. We are just two people. We want to get as many people on the site as possible, but there's so much good talent out there, and it surprises me every day how many good letterers there are and how many of them no one knows about. It's crazy. So that was a growing pain too. Like, how the hell do we fit all these amazing people on the site and still have it be a good enough site where people want to come back to it? So Those are two big things. Oh, like no money. We didn't have any money to really start it, so had to do it. You know, free 99 was our way of business.
So when if you had done it, if you were starting it today, I mean, first you probably didn't know what following it would get. Was maybe something you weren't prepared for. I mean, did you think, however many years you started ago, that it would still be going, or so strong today?
No, not at all. I mean, literally, it was Paulie and I doing letters, and my mom was telling me which one she liked best, and no idea. I mean, Brian, like I don't think we had any idea. Did you?
No, not really at all. I mean, I knew that it might. No, I didn't. I didn't know at all. Like,
it was just hard because we didn't know what the audience was. We didn't know who would like it. We knew that other designers were out there and were kind of nerdy about type, and we had no idea. I mean, that's the simplest way to put it. And it's awesome that people enjoy it. I mean, we started it because we were inspired, and now people are getting inspired by it. So it's kind of all full circle, and it's really fulfilling to know that people like it.
So what do you think you've learned that from creating and growing this? Because this ends up kind of being a business in its own. It's a project for sure. But what do you think you've learned in that process from just creating a project or a side project, really side project, to growing a business? Drew.
I would definitely say business. It's not like we're not raking in any cash or anything. Anything we sell or any money that we make from the start, it's always been put right back into the site. So we don't pocket any money. We don't want to. It's not even our work that's on the site. It's other designers' work. So we always hold that close to our heart. And anything that is a print that's paid for, or a T-shirt, it either pays for the next issue of prints to come out, or it pays for, like, we have to get a web plugin for the site for Twitter authentication or something, and that's how we pay for that stuff. So, I've definitely learned that projects take a long time. They definitely are a huge time commitment, and early on I was terrible at estimating my hours of freelance or like anything, and this has really kind of shown me how much work it actually takes, because on the surface, it's two letters that are put together, but there's a whole lot of back work. There's finding people that styles match cohesively together to put them next to each other. Someone whose following isn't like 3 million people that'll just crush some poor student who's equally as talented. And putting those together, like making sure their letters come in on time, posting it, tweeting it, making sure that it doesn't break. So it's definitely a lot of time, and that's something that I've really come to understand a lot better because of this project. And it's also really taught me how to interact with designers. I mean, I'm a designer, Brian's a designer, we're all nerds. There's no way around it. So just being funny with people, being loose. Initially I was like, hi, will you please submit to our blog? And then after a while it's just super casual. There's no real deadlines. I mean, we put a date, but it's up to you. I can't like email you saying like, where the hell's the letter at? That's not how we roll. So it's definitely taught me how to work with other people, which is great. And even Brian, like across the country, it's really allowed me to figure out how like cross country projects can work. So that's cool.
All right, that's awesome. I think that's helpful in your regular job and just being a designer, dealing with people, but also maybe it makes you feel like you're not just limited to what you can do in Chicago, or I know you were in Denver, and you don't just have to work with those boundaries, I guess.
Yeah, and it's cool too, because on the business side of it, I'll re-air quote those. We've definitely learned how to work with sponsors. We've learned how to diversify a project, being it's not just fights anymore. It's a live fight. What's up, Mike Jones? There's prints. We've got a couple of special like projects in the works. So it's been fun to do that, and also like business taxes. So there's a whole other side of stuff that I opened my eyes completely to. So yeah, it's definitely a learning experience.
I always think when you have something, even if it's a business that you're doing on the side, it teaches you, it gets you from that owner's kind of perspective, so that you can really help your clients a little better, because you're thinking about their bottom line better and how they're marketing and what they're, if they everybody has a budget, pretty much. So it helps you work within that and utilize that money for the, to the best ability, instead of sometimes as a new designers, sometimes are like, oh, let's just try this, and it gives you a different perspective, and I think it makes you a stronger designer because you have this side business.
Yeah, and Brian and I say this all the time, especially when the site was under development. We were relaunching, 2.0. We would always say like, "Oh my God, we're the client now. We're the, we're the buttheads that are constantly pounding the development team because we want it to go up. We want it to be live. We put all this work in it, and it's definitely allowed us to take both the ownership role and also the client role, because I don't know how to code in Expression Engine or anything like that. So it's definitely kind of like, oh crap, we're the clients now."
Yeah.
Right. Brian, did you want to add anything?
No, yeah, I was going to add that. It's like, you know what it's like to be a client now, so you're a little more patient with your clients, and and you're also more attentive to them, or you feel like you need to be, because you're like, okay, I know what it's like to be waiting, even if it's just for a day. Like, I know how long, when you're waiting for something, how much torture it is. So.
Yeah, that's great. I think it's good as a learning experience to have something that is like that, though. So, all right. So, Brian, what do you think? Why do you think it took off? Like, Drew says we're just all nerds, and so then we just join together. The internet allows us to come together. So why do you think it took off like it did? And are there things that, if you were to start like another project similar, and maybe designers were your key audience, what would you do because it worked so well for TYPEFIGHT?
Yeah, well, I mean, along with what Drew said earlier about how design is kind of subjective and people really want, they want feedback and they want to give their opinions, anytime, like, JCPenney comes out with a new logo, everybody's got an opinion on it, at least on my Twitter feed. So, like, everyone has an opinion, so that was a good, like, aspect of the site to get in early on. I mean, part of it is we kind of rode that there's this wave of, like, popularity of, like, hand lettering things, 5 or 6 years ago, whenever John Contino got big. So,
just
like,
him.
we kind of wrote
He's
that
the only
wave.
one.
Just him, and that's it. But, like, it got really popular, and we kind of rode that wave, and that helped us out. But I think one of the biggest things is, like, just the content and the fact that, like, as early as we could, we brought in really talented people and invited them to be on the guest fighter list. People that we already admired for their design, and so they, we knew they cared a lot about it, and they also, they just want to have fun with us, and, like, that's the thing, like, it's good work and it's fun, and those are kind of the big things. I mean, we're making letters, we're not making launch codes, so it's not like there's any, there's no, like, aspect, like, you can experiment too, like, that's what I'm saying. People want to experiment, and try new stuff they're not used to. So yeah.
Do y'all think what TYPEFIGHT did added to the growth of hand lettering? Because I do. I think that what y'all were doing really gave a platform for some people to really, explore some new things. And because it was fun, it wasn't like the stress of having to do something for a client. I mean, I definitely think drop caps, was huge in this as well, and hand lettering styles. But do y'all think that it played a role? Drew? I know this wasn't on our paper, sorry.
Hey, no. Improvising. I don't have any notes off the cuff. No, I think, like, hand lettering and also, like, just lettering in general, I am not a good hand letterer. I have to be on the computer. It's kind of a crutch. So it's something that I definitely worked on. I definitely sketched a lot more. It's very humbling to hear you say that it made an impact, and I think hearing people say that it's such a fun thing to be a part of, and it was like, it's kind of like a fraternity that once you're on there and you've been on it, it's kind of like, it's really cool to hear that, and unfortunately we can't get more people on there, but I definitely think that I hope it offered just another outlet for a kind of collection of inspiration that people can get. I've had people say, they look at the gallery for designing logos, or they look at the gallery for like wedding monograms and stuff. I mean, it's crazy that it's just kind of the way that the internet and inspiration has gone. There's just all these outlets for creativity and inspiration. So if people have gotten anything from it, that's amazing to hear.
All right, so Drew, here's another question for you. How do you feel about other people doing similar things? Because I know there are other kind of lettering competitions. Because as I was doing my research, I was like, what are all these other things? I mean, which is fine.
That's our reaction too.
Yeah.
So what do you think about that?
To be honest, we don't care. We love the fact that I don't care that there's imitations. It's great. It means that whatever the idea was, it means it worked and it's successful. And sometimes imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. Other time it's a little less. And there's kind of that line in design where people are super quick to jump into a Twitter battle, like, check out this dude who ripped me off. And sometimes it's totally acceptable. Other times it's not. And I think the way we handle it is I take it as a compliment. I mean, if people are doing lettering battles, that's awesome. That means that they're getting inspired by it, and that's great. So that's about 90% of them. 90% of them are good. There's like alphabouts, which is great. A couple of schools have actually done throughout the semester have done letters, and that's amazing that they're doing that type of stuff. And we open that to anybody. If you guys want to have like a lettering fight, don't let us stop you. We're only 2 guys, and we can only get so many people on the site. So it makes sense to have other things. And the flip side of that, we've had some people that have straight up like stole the logo, and that's different because that's identity. That's not like letters fighting together, So that's when it gets a little hairy. We had another individual like steal all the copy from the site and the logo, and it was like the same exact thing.
He called it Type Fight. Like if he wouldn't have called it Type Fight,
right,
I wouldn't have found it because I just Googled. I was self-Googling. Yeah, I was doing it. But like I did that, and I was like, "What is this guy?" Like if he would have called it anything, I probably never would have found it because it was in like some deep buried thing on like DeviantArt and things like. It's like I never go to DeviantArt, so I would never have seen that. But yeah, he called it Type Fight, and then he stole the copy and stole the logo and blah blah blah.
Right. It's like if you're gonna do it, just give a different name or something. Even the alphabouts one. I mean, that was like the second name behind Type Fight. It was either Type Fight or alphabouts, and
which I voted for.
You voted for alphabouts.
Yeah.
I don't know. Type Fight just comes off the tongue. I don't know. So, yeah, imitations are all over the place, but mostly they're good, and sometimes they're bad. And we try and just talk to them and just say, hey, we're not against your idea. We didn't really do anything super original. We just put 2 things together and let the internet vote. So you're totally welcome to do that too. Just maybe not use our logo and maybe not use our name, and maybe not like bash us because we can't get a lot of people on the site that you had to make this side project to counteract what we're doing. So we do this for fun. Everyone else does this for fun. So there's no name calling really. Maybe offline there's a little name calling, but not online.
That's good. Keep it professional, even though it was identity theft in a whole nother way.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So, Brian, I'm going to start with you. I'm going to ask you both this question. So, how often are y'all creating letters? I mean, you're working, you're doing this side project, you have lives. So, how often are you doing this for fun, not for a client piece? And how much time do you spend on personal lettering projects?
I mean, as far as like making Type Fight letters that were gonna go up on the site, like I'd never do that anymore. I did it twice, lost both times. Dan Rayfield and David Sizemore, you assholes, you got me both times. But so yeah, as far as like those letters, not anymore. Personal lettering projects, I mean, really, I'll do a script or a monogram for a logo. I mean, that's mainly what I do is making logos in my like business. So. Like if it calls for it, I mean, I don't want to like flood the market with lettering because it's kind of at a full point right now. So I don't really do much like personal stuff. I mean, I might at some point, like make a poster kind of thing. But I don't feel like I have time to do it right now.
Right. How about you, Drew?
Yeah, I think early on it was a ton. I mean, I was doodling every chance I could because I was going to be on the site. Like I had to actually do a letter to be on the site. So there was a solid year where I was really practicing and trying to find my groove. And every time when I do a letter, I was basically reinventing the wheel. I was thinking, how do I do this differently? How do I do something that people are going to like? And then at the end of the day, I'd end up with an artboard of like 8 trillion letters and a ton of different like colors and aesthetics and all that stuff. And I really had to pick one. So it definitely let me whittle down my work faster. I knew what my strengths were. I knew where I could work quicker, but also better. And that was early. Now, not so much. I mean, we did this site, and we've been totally fulfilled by it. So, I think about the letter J, Ryan and I were both like, yeah, we've gotten out of this what we wanted to, so let's like just keep it going for other people. And I've been completely at okay with not doing letters anymore. And then, to Brian's point, I feel a little more comfortable when I'm doing a poster or a type treatment or a logo or something, and that helped out with that. But unfortunately, the world of freelance design and art direction, you just don't get to do that stuff that much. So that's why this project started, was to be that outlet, and I'm cool with where I am now, I think.
So what do you think you both, because as I interview people, I see different processes, and it really influences my work. So what, from taking kind of that step back when you're not really doing the lettering, what does this project feed you for your work, and how does it impact? And Brian, I'm going to start with you.
I think Drew touched on this a little earlier, but it kind of has given me a better sense of how to like really expand like a brand. Whereas, before, I think of a brand, like, okay, it's a logo and here's some colors, and that's kind of how it goes. But with TypeFight, that's like, there's logos, there's colors, there's typefaces. We've expanded it to merchandise and prints and the live fight and all these things. So it's kind of like, it kind of has given me a bigger like field to look at when I'm thinking about how to make a brand, stand out. Like, yeah.
Just because of experience, because of what you did.
Yeah.
All right, Drew, how about you? You've kind of touched on this a little bit about planning your time and how that impacts you, but is there anybody's work that has impacted you, or?
A ton of people. I think I got into the gig poster scene like hardcore. I was obsessed with it. So I was influenced a ton by a lot of the gig poster artists, and silkscreen as a medium, basically to minimize your colors and all that stuff. So I don't know, like everybody, the internet is like this crazy. I always say the internet's crazy because you can put something up like TypeFight and it explodes, and you're on design blogs and stuff. So there's a constant feed of inspiration, and to name a couple people, I don't think I could do that. It's everything, even the bad stuff. You see what not to do most of the time, and that's more beneficial than what to do.
Right. So one more question for both of you, and then we're going to kind of do we're going to show some images, and you guys are going to walk us through kind of the through what it's been through since its inception to the live fight. So Brian, having such a well-known side project, I mean, I bet maybe some of your clients have no idea that you do this, but how do they feel about these side projects if they know about them?
I mean, I think as far as them knowing about it, like it only helps. Like it helps us get new clients. They see it and they see the fullness of it, and they're like, wow, that's somebody we want to work with. So yeah, it just helps, like, and just get your name out there. I mean, I have now, like, I can go to a design conference and say, hey, this guy I've never seen before, thanks for doing TypeFight, and like make at least a half a new friend for the 3 days of a conference.
Right.
So yeah, it's just been great in that sense.
How about you, Drew?
I was distracted slightly by someone saying Drew touched me, because that's what they heard. So I heard Brian's. She said Drew touched on this, not
Yeah.
Sorry.
So I heard Brian's answer, but what was the question? Sorry.
The question.
And I got very distracted.
The question was, how do your clients or your bosses or whatever feel about you doing this pretty massive side project? And if you're, and you heard what Brian said.
Yeah. I think, like, if it looks massive from the outside, that's awesome, because, behind the scenes, it's just like, again, it's us, and we're asking people to do this stuff. So I think we can hide it. I still freelance at agencies and stuff, and when I started, I was still very much at a full-time job. And Brian had always been working from home, which was great for like super quick fixes and stuff. But for the most part, I think client-wise, it's definitely the first thing I show people when I want to get new work. It's definitely like the star of my book, if you want to call it that, and people react to it really well, and they're like, "Oh, that's cool," or "Oh, I've seen that." And again, like meeting people in person that have done fights or that have done future fights and making connections has been great. Just you know, not necessarily getting our name out there, but having names come to us has been great. And you know, as far as employers, I think you know, where I worked before, they had a blog post on TYPEFIGHT, and some of the places that I work now, they're like, oh yeah, like we've definitely seen TYPEFIGHT, we voted. My creative director was the one that said he uses the gallery for logos, which was awesome. So just hearing that it's touched a bunch of people. I need to get off that
touching people, Drew.
Stop touching people. TYPEFIGHT.
This is a good touch. It's good.
So it's cool. I think it's been all good. And then there's been times where something's happened and I've had to make a phone call to some guys to help us with some codes and stuff. And there's been emergencies. A crazy angel investor tweeted about our site one time, and it crashed within like 6 seconds of like 6,000 visitors at once. So there's emergencies like that happen every once in a while, and we're dealing with some stuff right now that we're trying to fix. So I've been very lucky to have some accommodating people that I work with, and to the same point I made earlier, you know, they're nerds too. They're designers. They enjoy the site, and that's cool.
All right, so let's get into some images. I know we're kind of running out of time, and I had a feeling we would do this. So I'm going to pull up some images, and Drew, if you want to talk to us a little bit about what kind of happened, what changes have happened since TYPEFIGHT's kind of inception.
Sure.
So I'm going to start with the first one that you sent me.
Cool. Yeah, I'll follow along too. So all of these images are kind of, you know, I talked about having to do it on Tumblr, and kind of the limitations that we ran into with doing Tumblr was you're essentially posting a blog post each time. I mean, each fight was a blog post, so we really had to work within the container that they gave us. We kind of had to figure out what was possible. And to that note, there were kind of no rules, so we pretty much did whatever we wanted. And from early on, it was, you know, 2 letters going against each other. And Danielle, awesome comment. So early on, it was people not fighting, but you know, the letters were fighting, and it was a competition. So we immediately went to boxing, so like one-on-one type fight. Name TYPEFIGHT came along, and then we just kind of took off with the boxing motif. So the first site was a little more boxing centric. We did bios for everybody. You know, Brian did an incredible job writing fake bios for most people. You know, if you go on to the old site, which is still archived in Tumblr, you can read some of these things, and they're so funny.
Yeah,
and,
I didn't write all of them. Some people are hilarious and wrote their own bios, but like if people were like, I don't know what to do, then I just throw something together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wrote a few, and you can probably tell which ones I wrote because they're terrible. But we'd ask people, what are a few things about you? Like, what would your nickname be? Like, what would your weight class be? Like, what is your stance? And like Justin Pavor said, freedom. So it's all for fun. So we kind of took that attitude and we just went with it. We hacked together this Tumblr theme, and we really went with it. So after a while, we started noticing that the demand was more and more and more and more, and it was really hard to meet this demand of all these people that want to fight. So after about, I don't know, 60 fights or so of manually putting these 2 letters together and putting up there for voting, we decided to really start thinking about redesigning. Yeah, and some of these images are fun. You know, we did each letter that won, we did a little logo for them, and you know, we could only keep that up for so long because it's just so much work. You know, that was great, and we kind of like, I feel like we beat that Tumblr to death, and we got everything that we asked out of it, which is great. So then we started to talk about building a site from the ground up, and we had a ton of chats late nights, tons of, yeah, that's the old site. Look at that thing, like a dinosaur. You know, so we really started thinking about, you know, how do we make this thing from the ground up? How do we do this the right way? What are the things that we want to really have stand out? What are the things that are really going to complement all these letters? And we went through about 500 Google Docs. Brian can attest that I'm a huge Google Doc fan because I'm ADD. I'm all over the place.
Yeah, speaking of working long distance, that's like one of our main, like, Google Docs are awesome. And Dropbox, but Google Docs and Dropbox. Name Dropbox.
Yeah, Google has saved us, for sure.
Yeah.
So, you know, from those Google Docs, we had all these, like, things about what we wanted to do, like ideas we had, how we wanted to make the site awesome. And once we had kind of an idea of what we wanted to do, we wanted to look around and really see who was capable of doing this. And just from a chance encounter, we had Jeremy Lloyd fight, who did a letter for us. I think it was a C. And unfortunately, he lost to a good letter. But it really started his obsession with it too. And he's like, hey, you know, I work for this company called Sparkbox, and they do amazing web work. It was the first responsive website I'd ever seen a couple of years ago, and this was before we even started talking to them. I was like, holy crap, that website moves. And we started talking with them. So, you know, long story short, we started off with initial tasks. Like, we started to design stuff. Since we had the boxing motif, you know, I was always enamored with, like, 50s and 60s style boxing stuff. So we chose Volta as the typeface for the logo, which is like a beefy Clarendon or something, and it's like screams 60s and 50s. And we also had a ton of inspiration from these old boxing tickets, which are so cool. They're ruled out. There's tons of information on there. There's
oh, I'm speeding through to try to get to the.
Oh, that's cool.
Here, I'll go back to you and find it.
Sure. Yeah. No. So we basically had this boxing thing, and how do we, like, translate these 50s and 60s boxing tickets over to a website, which is kind of weird. Yeah. So they're so awesome. There's so much stuff on there. There's like a trillion different typefaces, and like 4 colors. It's crazy. So anyway, once we kind of got to a comfortable place with this idea, we put together a mood board, and then we really kind of let Sparkbox do some mobile wireframes first to figure out the necessary information on the page, and you know, from then we did the initial site iteration. So Jeremy was awesome and did the first 2 passes, and I think you have those too. They're kind of like the TYPEFIGHT's weird cousin. Yeah. So this was the very first one that Jeremy did, and what we saw was, you know, we wanted to definitely have the letters be the stars of the show. But do we want to have the names on top of each other so you don't know who did which one? Do we want to have a timer? Do we want to have comments? How are we going to zoom? So then we adjusted all these things, and then the next iteration you'll see we finally kind of gave up on trying to keep the letters anonymous. Early on we thought that by keeping the letters anonymous it would really help with people voting for their favorite designer type thing, but people started sharing them on Dribbble and on Twitter, and it's just hard to, like, anonymously promote something if you can't have anything invested in it. So we said screw it, and we went with the names next to the letters. And then here you'll see, like, there's still comments, there's still zooms, and this was super close, but it wasn't quite right. So Brian and I kind of, like, took this one and went one step further, which is pretty close to what you see today. We really wanted the letters to be the star of the show, so they're huge letters. You can zoom in on them. Minimal color, because, you know, all these letters are so colorful that we wanted black and white to really be the main color palette, and grays, so these letters stand out. And then the next one, this one still has comments, which was funny. I mean, I don't know why. Comments are terrible on the internet anyway, so I don't know why we wanted that. So yeah, this is the one you see today. So we did cool things, like you don't see the voting bars until you vote on a letter, and there's a cool animation and stuff. So Sparkbox was great, and telling us what was possible, and kind of like putting a leash on our ideas to make sure they're all realistic, and kind of guiding us in the right direction. So yeah, I mean, long story short, we launched in October of last year. We are doing some prints for Heavyweight series, which are like our all-time favorite designers, and they're people who we would want to have their artwork on our wall. So, you know, we asked them to do letters, and they're all so awesome and dedicating their time and giving us some great pieces. So, yeah, I mean, in a nutshell, that's the story of the changes from the design standpoint it went through. And it was a huge, you know, team effort. Brian and I had tons of late nights, and Brian actually did the lettering logo, and like I say, he did it in like a half hour. And I didn't even get to work on this freaking thing. He nailed it the first go-around, and we did some tweaks and stuff. But, yeah, it's great. So, you know, further changes, something that we've been doing are these live fights, which Mike just left, unfortunately. But Mike is kind of like the person that allowed us to do this. And Brian, you can talk about the live fights.
So, go, Brian.
Okay. It's like, we want to get into this? Okay. Yeah, so... the live fight, we did the first one at Creative South, and it was pretty incredible. It was mostly incredibly tiring because we were trying to figure out how to do this thing, like as we were doing it. But I'm really glad we did it, and I'm really glad Mike Jones. Like, we kind of had these ideas, like to do these things live, or like at universities and things like that. Like, we kind of had this just kind of rolling around our head. Then Mike Jones came and like actually like said, hey, I want to do this at Creative South, and like, what is it going to take to get you guys to do this? And we're like, all right, we're in. Like, let's figure this out. Like at first, our kind of first idea was to do it more like the site where we choose like 2 people and we put them in the ring, and like the audience just comes and watches them, you know, do whatever. But Mike was kind of adamant about making it for basically anyone who is attending the conference to come and like just show what they've got, like like up on stage and whatever. And we're like, you know, all right, that sounds like a lot more work, but yeah, we'll do it. Yeah. So and yeah, I'm super glad that we did, because it just like turned out 10 times better than like I thought it was going to be. And so. Let's see what else was great about it.
So Bob says it was stressful.
Yeah, there's a few people in the chat that were in it, and I mean, I'm super envious that I did not do it. I mean, or not envious that I did not fight, because we were like blaring crappy music, and we left it to the people. We left it to the people that were doing it.
Yeah, I mean, and Mike also had the idea of getting the actual boxing ring. Like, he actually found the site where you can just rent that, and apparently it's not that expensive. So, yeah, and that was incredible to bring that in there. Also, side note, wrestling may be fake, but that ring is not as fake as you think it is. I gave that ring to People's Elbow, and it gave it right back to me. So I don't know if nobody called the ring and told it that it was fake, but anyway. Yeah, we had a really great mix of people. Like, there were, you know, all the way from students to like professional designers to like, you know, web developers who just wanted to try something new and like just get in the ring. So, yeah, there's
there you are on the.
Yeah. That's not a pose. That's not me posing at all.
He body slammed the table after that shot.
Yeah, that was what's going on.
He ruined it.
I'm calling out. I can't see who's in that fight. Anyway. So yeah, it was super fun. We got to meet all these people. There's Mike Jones, like, yeah, right after his fight that he won. Got to, you know, just hang out and trash talk and you know, listen to the same playlist a billion times. And yeah, at the end we had the heavyweight fight, which was kind of like, we just decided, well, we can get a couple people who we know. So we got Mary Kay McDevitt and Nathan Yoder there to do like the final, like, you know, heavyweight battle by themselves. Yeah. Nathan doing things, but yeah, it was kind of this. We didn't know what to expect as far as like the outcome of the work, like what was gonna, if it was gonna be great or just kind of bad or what. But it turned out much better than we expected, and it's kind of this great thing where you're put under this pressure of like the hour time frame to like, you know, you're forced to make decisions. Like, there's no art director, you know, hovering over your shoulder saying like, I'm kind of meh about this line here. Like, you have to just make decisions, and I think some really good stuff comes out of you just saying, screw it, I'm gonna make this blue, and that's it. Like, I don't have time to waffle over, you know, light blue, dark blue, cyan, blah, blah. So yeah, and yeah, I'm super proud of everyone who went in there because they're so brave. Because if I was not forced to stand in the ring and yell at people, like I would not have ever set foot in there. Like if I would have just been an attendee, I would not have gone up there and fought. Like I'd be scared out of my mind. So yeah, everyone went in there. You're awesome, and we hope if you do any more, which I think we are, especially at Creative South, we're definitely doing another one. Yeah, hope more people get in there. People keep coming back.
I think it was great, and I think it's great that you did open it up and that people could. But I was totally intimidated. I would have never gone up there because I would have frozen, and it would have been like a letter in Alaskan snowstorm because it would have just been white, and I couldn't have made any good decisions. I think so. But it was neat to see, and it was a really big ring. And I think just getting in the ring took some guts for people physically. It's like it was a big structure. So just to get up there, because there were all these tables around it of sponsors and stuff, and it was cool, though. It was really different. So do you think if you guys do this again somewhere else besides Creative South, do you think you'll rent a ring, Brian?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of like a big thing. So if they don't have the budget for it, then fine. But really, it's not that expensive. So it's pretty awesome, and I think it really, I mean, it just helps bring this like big visual like to this thing. If it's just on a stage, then it's like any other thing, like it's just a stage. But this is like a ring, man. It's right there. Everyone can circle around it. Like it's in the center of the room. It's great. Yeah.
And so at the end of Creative South, you guys had, you showed all the letters that were up and the winners, and then you had a champion. And so if you look at like this, it has the little scallopy things, I don't know what they're called, but it's like on a stamp or something, that was on your very beginning, like at the very beginning of when the Tumblr stuff, like there are those little things, little pieces that are still from that. I mean, it's a beautiful champion certificate. I don't know.
I printed those in my kitchen, which was awesome. I was like, hey, we should just get them something for at least participating. Like we're so thankful that these people signed up, and yeah, there's a ton of stuff in our like brand that we've carried over, and typefaces and stuff, and line work, and yeah, like the kind of like squiggly edges on the sides of there is definitely from 1.0. So it was awesome. It was so much fun, and I can't wait to do it again. I would cry if I was in the ring, like fighting. I would crack, but yeah, those people, we were completely shocked with the amount of amazing letters we got.
I think Bob has a great comment. He says that the good part was about the ring was that people could watch you but not hover over your shoulder, which right. I think just makes more pressure. And on stage, I think it's even would be worse because then, you can, it might be more pressure too. But I think it was good because then it was like, well, not for me because I'm pretty short, but because I was like looking at people's knees probably, but you were looking at more of it wasn't so far up, but you were separated, I guess. So
yeah, no one was like, hey, what are you doing? And you like, go away, I got an hour. But yeah, that was kind of the point. We didn't know it was going to be that big, but we were really thrilled with how it worked out. And yeah, people were kind of like isolated in this thing, but we polled all the fighters afterwards and got their thoughts on how it went and what they could do better and what we could do better. And we really kind of dialed in that people, I think, liked to be in the ring. They liked to be up there. But at the same time, a lot of people who were watching would love to see what they're working on. So trying to find some like audio-visual components of having cameras up there and linking people's computers to screens so you can see what they're working on. And really dialing in that live experience just to make it so it's fun for the people fighting, but also people watching. And we won't play any more AC/DC, I promise.
Wait, we will not discuss this. I want more AC/DC. I want all AC/DC.
Not as loud and not Thunderstruck 100,000 times.
Yeah, that's true. It did get a little loud sometimes, and yeah.
Yeah, so we definitely, when we do this in the future, we've definitely dialed it, and it's great, and it's awesome that people were so receptive to it.
So tell us a little bit about the shop, and I just posted a link over here, shop.thetypefight.com.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about that, and then go ahead.
Yeah, so when we relaunched, we really wanted to kind of kick it off with a bang, and you know, like I said about the heavyweight fighters, we ask people that we are completely obsessed with their work, and the fact that I can hang, you know, like a Simon Walker E on my wall is amazing to me. And those prints were really kind of hatched from wanting to do something beyond the web, so we could actually print the letters, hold them, because they're all so great. And you know, if they're just online, you can only do so much with it. But we teamed up with Mama Sauce, and they print all the letters. We print them all in French. You know, French was nice to donate some paper and stuff. And the shop as a whole exists to fund Type Fight. So any print or T-shirt or moleskin or sticker that you buy, we give stickers away in orders. You don't have to buy those. So all that stuff, you know, it's awesome because say it costs $500 to do the next run of L's. You know, if people buy prints from the site, that funds that next series. So that's why it exists. You know, we're not like making tons of money off it. We're making the perfect amount to fund this thing. So yeah, that's why it's there. And you know, to hold these letters in your hands, it's so awesome to me that we took this little tiny baby site, and now I can hold like a 12-inch by 12-inch letter in my hand, and they look amazing. The designers do a great job. The printing is awesome. So I love them. I'm obsessed with them.
Everyone buy them.
Yeah.
There aren't many left.
So, and we're also doing, you guys gave us a great opportunity to, so you two don't leave when I close the session in just a second, and we're going to pick a number, and everybody has a number of when they come in, and I'm able to see that. So anybody who was attending live today is open for a giveaway, and we're going to do, if it's okay, Drew said I could pick whatever letter, and I picked Mary Kate's D, I think.
Yeah. So we'll figure out how to do it, but if you're in here, we definitely want to, you know, give you something. So we thank everyone for coming out. And I see that you also posted, you know, the weigh-in form, which if you guys scroll through the site or through the chat, and even later on if you're watching this from wherever you're watching it, feel free to go to that weigh-in form. That's how we get everybody on the site. You know, back in the day, we had to look for all these people, and we had to seek out people and ask them if they were interested. And if people sign up, then we know they're interested. We kind of say, hey, this is your letter, this is your date, you know, let's do it. And it's really been awesome. There's so many people on this list. There's a 2,000-3,000 people on this list, and everyone's awesome. And we just go through and we match people up to their skill level and their styles, and go weigh in. And you know, you might not hear from us for a while, but that's just because we're bottlenecked with awesome people. But yeah, feel free to sign up.
Just in case they couldn't see the chat or something. Oops, oh, cool. You're seeing me twice. Crap. I'm leaving. I'm leaving the side chat. Sorry about that. Anyway, thank you guys so much. I'm going to share, if you guys, it's at TypeFight, and I've shared it a little bit earlier, and then Instagram/TypeFight. And then here is how I'm going to post right now. Here's how to follow Drew on Dribble, Twitter, and Instagram, and then Brian. I didn't do a good return there. Sorry about that. Brian is Dribble, Twitter, and Instagram as well. So it's really What Brian with a Y. What Brian with a Y, and then Roper with underscores between every letter. So, guys, thanks so much. I have two mice next to me, so it's hard for me to. I pick up the wrong one always. So, anyway, thank you guys so much for coming and doing this, and I know we didn't get through all the questions. Hopefully you guys had fun, and we can do it again and finish up the rest of the stuff, and maybe you can tell us about what's coming up next.
Yeah, thanks so much for having us. It was awesome, and thanks everyone for joining us, and we're all thrilled that you like our site, so thank you for visiting it.
Yeah.
Well, guys, we have Alonzo Felix next Wednesday, regular time, 2:30 Eastern, 11:30 a.m. Pacific. So make sure you check it out next week, and I'll share a link later today on designrecharge.org. And thanks, guys. And I think I have your email address if you are in here, and so whoever wins, I will email you. And I will post whoever the winner is on the site too, and then if you can get in touch with me, then we'll get you your print. So thanks, guys, so much, and I'll see y'all next week.